This is a video for a bit more Microsoft Excel. This video assumes that you have already completed the standard tutorial for Excel that I run during my Introduction, Intermediate and Advanced Computer class. This section is comprised of 3 separate files. We have a bit more Excel, a how-to guide. We have a bit more Excel setup and answers. And we have the actual Excel file, which you can use as an example as well, which has things already set up, both just in this form, with nothing else added. I need to delete those things. And all the things typed in for you already, but none of the codes typed in, so or the formulas, I should say. So you've got a couple of options of how you can do this one. You can and should start with a bit more Microsoft Excel. And it goes through the new skills we were learning today, which are data validation, checking if something is or is not empty, how to use the autofill, the if function, the counter if function, calculating an average, and using average if to calculate an average when something is true or not. The goal for today is to create an attendance sheet. That's an example only. The goal of today is to create a student roster system that is intelligent and adaptive. The finished product will count how many students are enrolled in a course, allow you to mark each student's attendance, and return statistics for attendance. The idea is that a system you make for yourself will always work better than one made by someone else. For me, this is true of to-do lists, reminders, and enrollment forms. If this one is of no use to you, that's okay. You'll have learned some useful skills and perhaps you can apply it to something that will make your life easier. I'd love to see what things you make if you do, so feel free to send me things that you make if you would like to do. That's pretty bad English. I also plan to make a few more like this for things, for example, an automated shopping list and a personal to-do list reminder system. I'd also be open to suggestions and requests as well. Did I mention that I'm a nerd for Excel? I hope I have by now. At this point, after a little introduction, we can actually jump over to the setup and answers document, not the Excel file, but the document, which is this one, which says that you should recreate the sheet as per below, using whatever names you like, the ones provided or your own. Now, you can either do this yourself, open up a brand new Excel file, blank workbook, zoom in a little bit, and then maybe you could press the Windows key and press right. You can put that to one side of the screen. It'll say which one do you want to put on the left. We can put this one there, and we can zoom this one in as well if we need to, and we can type it in as we see here. Student Abe Anderson, or whatever names you prefer. A little reminder that you can put your mouse cursor between columns and either drag it like this, or double left click to have it auto adjust. I recommend you wait until you have all your students entered and then just double click, and then whichever student has the longest name, it'll automatically adjust to that. We can put in the date either provided there, or we can put in the date that's sort of a week ago from today. So today's the 16th, click on the calendar, it's the 9th last week. This project is assuming that your classes will be running once a week. So you have to make adjustments if that is not the case. Another thing that's good to know is if you wish to make boxes like this one, we can highlight the cells we want the boxes to be contained in. In this case, it goes down to and includes 14. From the Home tab, it's a bit hard when it's squashed like this, in the font group, a little drop down here for borders, and outside borders are a pretty good one. Outside borders will put it around, but not inside of. It's a bit hard to see there, but when I click off, you can see there's now actually a border there, which changes with that as well. So you might need to play around with that to work out how to do ones for here as well, for example, which in the document goes up to J. So if I highlight up to here, click the little arrow here, there's options for things like bottom. That one just puts it on the bottom, a line along the bottom. I like to use these quite a bit just to visually break up what's going on. So you've got the option to make this yourself, or you can open up the provided example file. I'm going to do that now on my other screen here, open with Excel. Lock for editing, that's because I've got it open here. Let's just close that there. Try that again. Open with Excel. So you can't see that part, that's just on the other screen. But here we have a new window for Excel with the Excel file. So you can use this to compare to your existing one that you're working on to see if things are the same. Under the setup one here, like I said, I need to actually clear this out. So ignore this one for a moment. That is data validation, which we'll come to later. How do I clear that? Okay, so those have been removed now. They are for later. So once again, I'm going to put in yesterday's or last week's date. What did we work out that it was? It was about the 11th, wasn't it? 9th, nowhere near it. The 9th of the 11th, 20, and you'll see that it will format the date for you. So I like putting in the dashes because it's handy there on the number pad. That's up to you. So once you have this set up like we see here, or you're using this existing one, then we need to go back to the other document. So there is a bit of document switching here. There's 3 documents to have to switch between. We made this a bit bigger now. There's a hint here about using the borders on the Home tab, as we mentioned before, so that's in the document as well. Once you've entered in all of your text, formulas and functions, you can use the steps below to add the other features. Now hang on, where are the formulas and functions? Also in this document, once you've entered in these details, down on the next page, or bottom of the first page, it says to add the information to get started. These are all the words basically that you will be entering in to make this part. So for example, it's a bit windy outside here, please excuse the background noise. In cell A1, type the word student. You don't need to put the quotation marks. So in cell A1, once again, your column is A, your row is 1, so the cell here is A1, type the word student. Between cells A2 to A10, if you remember from our class, that putting a colon there is like saying a range, like between these two things, put in the names of students. Up to A10, that's fine. In A16, write the words total enrolled students. So A16, total enrolled students. So by completing this, you would have done all of these. And then step 3, that should actually be on the next page. Formulas and functions. Okay, so here's, we're going to do pretty much the same thing as the previous part, but we're going to enter in each of these into the appropriate cells. So the first one is in cell B16, count if, open bracket, $, we'll talk about that in a moment, A2 colon, so between A2 and A14, also with a $. Then we have a comma, a space, open talking marks, asterisks, and talking marks, close bracket. Geez, that's a long one, isn't it? We can also just cheat and actually just highlight this and do a Control-C for copy. Come over to our Excel book. And that was in cell B16. And we can actually put this to one side. Let's put the one we're working on to the right. And the one that we're looking at on the left. In cell B16. Yep, so here, column B, row 16, I can just do Control-V for paste, and it's put in number 9, which, you know, it might be like, hang on, that's not what I pasted, but remember to look in your formula bar here, we can see that formula that we've pasted. So equals, tells Excel that something's about to happen, so math's going to go down. Count if is the function. Count if says, and you get this sort of thing here that actually shows you how to format this properly, the range and the criteria with a comma that separates them. So commas are important. So the range is $A2 to $A14, and then the criteria after a space, a comma and a space, is that in talking marks, asterisks. So that means anything that is within that range, that if there's something there, I want you to count it. Let's have a look at that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It says 10 there, but that's because student takes up the first spot. So if we do another one here, press enter, let's see that number change to 10 then. Do Control Z just to remove that one. So 9, 10. So it's counting anytime there's something in here. The dollar sign means that when we fill this formula out, which we'll do in a moment with the little corner here, it's always going to be looking at this column. I'm going to show you what that means. Let me zoom out just a little bit and maybe just scroll across a little bit. When I grab the cell by the bottom right hand corner, I can autofill across. I think it's up to about J, so I need to pull across a bit more and let go, and it fills it in. Now let's see what actually happened to this formula. In here it says A2 to A14, in here it says A2 to A14, and so on and so on. If I remove those with Control Z and change this formula to without the dollar signs, the first one's still correct. Let's fill this out again using the autofill. Let go. We get zeros. Why is that? The formula's changed from A to B. So setting the dollar sign makes it what's called an absolute. It's saying do not change, when I fill the formula, do not change the letter. You can put this in front of the number too, if you're doing formulas that are going to be running down, formulas or functions, and that way the number won't change. You can even do on both the letter and the number, and then neither of them will change when you fill the formula. These are usually used for things where the source thing is not going to be moving. So I'm going to fill that back across, and it's updated again. And then we just go through and do each one of these. So some of these won't come up with an answer at the moment because we need to do some other things for that. So next one is in cell B17, so next one down, Control copy, total enrolled students minus withdrawn and not applicable. Students minus, take out that word, doing some editing on the fly here. So we can paste that one into here, Control V, and at the moment it equals 10. Once we have any withdrawn and not applicable students entered, it'll also take that into account. Now we could drag this across right now, or we can just wait. We only need to do the whole first column, and then we can drag all of our formulas across. The next one, in cell B18, count if between B2 and B14 that the letter P exists. Okay, let's put that one in and then explain it. So just to the equals, I need the equals, give me that one. Put that in cell B18. So the reason this has been structured this way is so that when you're following along with the guide, you know which cells this is talking about. If you do a different number of spaces here, we make this longer or less, then these formulas aren't going to make sense. I can place this one in here. So in this one, it is checking anywhere in here, does the letter P exist? If so, I want you to count it. So if there's something in there, count it. I'm just going to press enter just to get out of that one. So another way to get out. At the moment, there was 0. That's fine. We'll come back to that. You'll also notice I've not used dollar signs for these. And that's because when I fill it across, I do want it to check each column. Because this one's going to be checking this column. This formula will be checking this column. And then this formula will be checking that column. So we want the accurate number of P's for that column. The next few formulas are pretty much the same. It's just doing a count in the column if one of these other conditions are true. So we've got a few here. We have P for present, A for absent with permission, A for absent, W for withdrawn, and I sort of made an extra category for not applicable. Sometimes you'll have a student who might start in the second or third week, so it's good to have one that you can use for other things. So I'm going to right click and copy. You could also do Control C. This one goes in B19. I'm just going to go down and fill in the rest of these. One more, there we go. I almost put it in the wrong spot then. And then, let's see what else we have down here. Next one, okay, we've got something different here. This one is equals sum, there's a range, and then it's subtracting something else. Adds the range of counted attendance types and subtracts the total enrolled students. Checks attendance against enrolled. If is not 0, a student was missed. So let's do this one and then we'll explain it. I always like to put in checksums in my things. So this counts up the total number of marks. So a student must have one of these marks. They must either be present, absent with permission, absent, withdrawn, or not applicable. They must fill one of those conditions. And it's also saying, well, what is that minus the number of students? So at the moment we've got 10 students, but no check marks. So none of these students have a mark next to the name. They really need one. And this little thing here will tell us that there are 10 students that need some sort of mark next to their name. So once again, that won't be accurate until we have all that information in. Last one for this side, move that across a bit more. In cell B24, we want equals B18 divided by B17. That's the divided by symbol. It's a /. You'll find that on your number pad on the right hand side of the keyboard, or the same key as the question mark on your keyboard, but without the shift. So without pressing shift on the keyboard, press the question mark and you'll get the /. The present students divided by active gives you the percentage of attending students. Paste that one in there. At the moment it's 0 because it is 10 divided by, no, blue one, 0 divided by 10, which is 0. Once again, once you've got some students in there, we'll see some more interesting things. Back on the left hand side here, I'm going to scroll this up, if I can please do that. And I'm going to go across to the other side of the page. I'm going to scroll to the other side. It's just zoomed in so we can see it easier. Only 4 more to go. In cell K2, well, that's a bit different. Where's K? It's down the other end, I think, and 2 would be the second row. So let's go across here. K2. I can also check when I'm in there. It tells me here what cell I'm in. We want equals count if B2 to J2. So I'm going to copy that. Counts the range, but only if there was a student present. So put this in here. And it's currently 0 because it says if there's anyone marked as present in here with the letter P, marking them as present, then count them. That's fine. Next one goes next to that, I'm pretty sure, in L2. Counts if within the range, if something was entered. It's not the best English, but works out how many classes have been attended. Paste that in, there's one in here. So the remembering that the quotation marks, asterisks, quotation marks, means count if there's anything. This one is counting if the letter P is there. And this one is like a wild card. It means anything. That's fine. I've recently changed this code. I can't get a nice clean version. If you can work out a way to get this one to not come up with divide 0 when there's nothing, which is fair enough because 0 divided by 0, computers don't like to do anything divided by 0. If you can come up with a better formula, let me know and we'll update the document. I've tried a few and can't get it to work. This one is basically just saying the number of times classes that they attended divided by the completion. So if someone has attended 5 classes, we'll see in a moment, out of a possible of 10, then they will have an attendance of 50%. And finally, this one's down a bit. This one's hard to find. Column K, row 24, so right here, equals the average attendance. My apologies, is this little complicated one. Using the function, put this in here. Once again, we get a divide by 0, which is expected. Calculates the average of all attendance, but only if the average is not 0. Let's have a look at that one. Let's move across here first. I'm just using the keyboard to use the arrows to move around here. I need to actually fill in all of these formulas, but good thing is I can just highlight these, grab the last one by the corner and drag these all across. Up to here, but not over. So up to here. If you've gone too far, remember you can always do Control Z. And we don't have anything here until we enter in some information. This is a good time to zoom in. This is a good time to take a break and have a look at what you've achieved. Go through and have a look at each of the formulas and see how these ones have changed the column headings so that each one of these, make sure you tap escape or enter before you click somewhere else after doing that. Each one of these is looking at the column above. Okay, back to it. What's next? We're actually finished with this document now. We can close this one. Once again, if you want, you can just use the setup document. And actually, I need to save this so I'm not overwriting it. Save as a bit more. And I'm just going to call this one edited, so that I know that I've been editing it and making changes in it and using it as my example. So we've actually finished with this document now. So I've been making changes to that. Okay, so back to the original one, the how-to guide. We've done that. We've now entered in our formulas and functions into that one, and we're going to add some extra things into our thing over here. Geez, it's getting windy outside. Data validation is one of the new things we are learning. Data validation allows you to make rules to restrict the type of data or values that others can enter into a cell. So we're actually going to restrict what it will allow people to enter. You can find it underneath the Data tab in the Data Tools group. So, Data tab, if you're on the Home tab, you can go over to the Data tab, and we're looking for data validation. Now, I'm going to maximize my screen for a moment just so you can see where it is normally. Data validation is here under the Data Tools tab. Put that back over there. Data Tools, Data Validation is there. Now, a little tip, I'm not sure if I've got it in here. No, I'm going to add it in. Okay, before we begin then, select the cells between B2 to it's going to be 14, J14 I think. What's the last one? J14 to J14. Like this. So click in the first cell once. So left click once and drag. I'm not using the corner. I'm using it when I have the large white arrow, white cross. So left click and drag across. You move across if you want. Down to 14. I can see the left hand side there, and let go. Okay, we need to have those cells selected. Let me zoom out to show you which ones I'm talking about. Can I scroll across, please? So all of the boxes where we could put a tick for someone, and we might get a few more students joining in. That's why we have some redundancy there. So make sure we have all those selected. Once again, left click once, so we have the white cross. Left click and hold, and then drag down. The first one will always be highlighted white. So if we actually started down here, that one will be highlighted. Doesn't matter which way. It shows you which one's the first cell. Doesn't matter which way. And I might even just take a quick screenshot of that. Add into the document. Here we go, a little bit of document editing on the fly here. Copy that one and paste it into there, and then I'm going to have to make some adjustments to that later on. Just make it small for now, just as a reminder to come back. So select that first, then move on to the next steps. To set up a rule for validation, select a range of cells, which I sort of mentioned before, and click Data Validation. I think that needs to be, highlighted more. Data Validation from the Data tab. We have quite a few options in here, ranging from whole numbers and decimals to date and time, as you can see from the picture here. For our activity, we will be specifying a list of our own creation. Now let's add a list of the following. And now we're going to do it exactly as it's written here. Letter, comma, next letter, no spaces. Making sure we separate with a comma. Okay, so let's highlight these cells. Just one more time to show. And we're going to go to Data Validation. And Data Validation here, the first one. We're going to bring up the same box. See, same box as this one. We want to allow a list, and we want it to be the source. That's also missing from there. So then type. Now let's add a list into the source box of these ones. Okay, so in the source box, I'm going to put caps lock on. You could use a capital lock. So caps lock on, P, comma, A, comma, AP, comma, W, comma, N/A. You can use whatever you like. I like to use these ones. You could use the whole word, present, comma, absent, comma, absolute permission. But the way this document's been designed, if you remember before, checking for present, I was looking for the letter P, not the whole word present, but for specifically the letter P by itself. So if you are going to do that, you're going to have to change all of your formulas and functions over here to match that. I'm going to click OK. I didn't mean to click OK then. Oh, yes, I did. Yes. So press OK. And now you'll notice this little arrow here. Let me go full screen again and zoom back in so we can see what's going on. Not too much, zoom back out again. Remember that's control and mouse wheel to scroll. You see this box now has a little drop down arrow. So does that one, so does this one. So does anyone within that range we selected. This one was outside of the range, does not have it. That one was inside the range. So what are these little arrows? Well, you can click on that now and select one of those options. So P for present. I've got conditional formatting on still. That's coming up next. So I'm actually going to delete all that. And we're going to learn how to do that ourselves. That is actually under home, and why I always forget where it is. And I'm going to clear all the rules. The entire sheet. No rules. Okay. No cheating here. We're going to do this ourselves. I'm going to click the little drop down box and select absent. What about absent with permission? What if we try and type in here? If I have caps lock on still, I do. Type in W for withdrawn. Yep. N/A for not applicable. Beautiful. What about some random letter? What about Y? It's going to say this value does not match the data validation restrictions defined for this cell. Retry, cancel, or help. Retry, let you go back in and type again. Oh, hang on, I meant P for present. Whoop, capital P. Caps lock off. Shift P. Either way, lowercase p, does that work? No, doesn't like that either. So retry, capital P. There we go. And you'll notice down the bottom here, some things were happening as I was doing that. I'm going to scroll back over so you can see what it's referring to. This one stayed the same. Active students has changed. The number of people present are 3. So we can come here and go present, present, present. It hasn't counted the P from here, so it's not looking for just single letters. Well, it won't pick the letter P out of here. The absent with permission person is counted though. There's one person who's absent with permission. And we've still got a -3 checksum, which we were mentioning before. So there's still 3 people here who need some sort of mark. Let's make them all present. Oops, a bit fiddly sometimes. And now our checksum is 0. Nice. And 75% of our class is here. That's what 0.75 means. There's a better way to display that. We'll do that after. Okay, so that was data validation. Under the data tab, data validation, we created a rule for those selected cells to say only these things are allowed from the list we are making. We also got a little bit of a sneak preview there. Let's make this screen full. A bit of a sneak preview there of what's coming up next, which is conditional formatting. So that one was data validation, making things valid, and conditional formatting is changing the format based on some sort of condition. Under the Home tab in the Styles group, we find the conditional formatting button, and then so we want to click on that, and then click on the Manage Rules button at the bottom. Once again, I need to add in here, select the cells to be modified to have this applied to. I'm going to come back and change that to make better sense. Applied to. I'm going to put that in. So we want to select the cells first and then do conditional formatting. You can just say for the entire sheet, but I like to do it for sections so that you can make different rules for different sections as well. So let's do that first. Let's select all those cells. I'm going to zoom out. Left click with the white cross all the way down carefully. Make sure I'm not doing this or that. Just make sure I get all of them. And then go over to the Home tab, Conditional Formatting, and then Manage Rules. Let's move this over to the right hand side of the screen so we can see both at once. I don't think it's going to let me use it. Not while that's up. So we've clicked on Manage Rules after highlighting those cells. Now this bit's a little bit fiddly. We will be using the rule type number 1. So number 1 here is the arrow pointing to here. And that arrow is a little bit high there. Format only cells that contain. And then in the second box, it's marked here, equal to, and then typing a capital P in the last box, and then the format button. Let's actually explain that. It's easy to do that over here. So we're going to make a new rule. I think that's also missing from the document. new rule. Once you've selected new rule, then the next step makes more sense. Format only cells that contain. Over here, we change between to equal to, and then in here, you can put a capital P. Make sure it's capital. Okay, so that's the conditional part. And now we want to do the formatting part. So we can click on Format. And in here, you've got lots of different options. You could also make it different fonts. You can make them bold, all sorts of things. We're going to go over to Fill. This is also in the document, and we're going to pick a color. Now I'm quite fond of doing colors that make sense to me, so green makes sense to me, but it's usually better to do sort of a shade of green, otherwise it's a bit too much in your face. So let's do this one and click OK. So the idea is if they're present, that's good, and they're here. Green is a good, thumbs up kind of color. So I click OK, and it shows you a preview of what that would look like, and then we can click OK again. Now, until we actually apply the rule, we won't see any changes over here. We need to go through and make a rule for each one of these different conditions. So let's add another new rule. Format only cells that contain equal to the next one, which is absent with permission. Making sure that it's capital. That's the rule. Let's set the format. For format, I think absent with permission, they're still absent, but they tried. They contacted us to let us know. So sort of orangey color is not bad. You do what colors work good for you. You click OK. We now have two rules. Once again, let's make another new rule. For format only cells that contain the exact or equal to. Next one down the list is absent. This is our first really bad one. If the person hasn't contacted us, then it's going to be maybe a red color. Not bright red. Don't have a heap of options. We can go to more colors here and actually pick one from the color wheel, or you can make a really fancy one. So that was standard and custom. We can make a red color that's still red, but not too orange, because the other one's kind of orange. So like that will do. And go OK, and OK, and one more OK, back to there. So we've got three now. Let's add another new rule. So two more to go, I think. Three more to go. No, two. Withdrawn and not applicable. So format only cells that contain equal to. I'm doing this several times because this is probably the trickiest part. Withdrawn is next. Format. Withdrawn, I always think of coldness. Like if you withdrawn from me. So blue color for that one. And click OK. And last one is not applicable. Format cells only that equal to. Last one, N/A. Make sure you've got your capitals and your forward slash. That's to match whatever you've been using everywhere else. Because if you put backslash, it's going to go, I don't know what that means. And for this one, I usually use something like a gray. Like that. OK and OK. And then finally, once I click apply here, watch what happens over here. Automatically applies the color for each one of those conditions. So conditional formatting, depending on what the condition is, our conditions are it's going to equal one of these. If one of these is true, then do this. Apply the formatting. I can click OK to get out of here now, and now any other cells in this range, you'll also notice we've still got 3 rows we're not using here. So that's the first day. Then maybe on the next day, we don't have a date here yet. It might be missing from the documentation. Next person was absent with permission. This person actually came on that day, so they were present. So was this person. Usually I find when someone's withdrawn, they withdraw from the whole class. So I can actually make it easier on my life and grab this one and drag that all the way across to the end. And then they are no longer counted as an active student. So that's interesting. Maybe do Control Z there and watch what happens here. Control Z, it's still 10. Over here we have 8. So what's the difference when I drag this across? So watch the active students goes down to 9. Why are there 8 here instead of 9? Well, here we have a person who is not applicable. Perhaps this person isn't starting till week 2. So this person is present here, and it all works out. Still 5 things that need to be done. Maybe the next person was absent with permission. Next person was just absent. And maybe this person withdrew after the first week. So once again, I would fill that across. And the last 2 people, let's mark them as present. Also, type in there as well. There we go. Now, the date I mentioned, I'm pretty sure in the document somewhere it does say we can do a clever thing here in Excel. If I click in here and I put in equals B1, yep, it highlights that, plus 7. This is assuming that the next class is 7 days after the previous, so that should be today's date when I'm doing the video, the 16th, yes. If I click the little fill option here, I left click and drag that across to the end, that now says for each one of these, the previous cell plus 7. So this one is that one plus 7, this one is that one plus 7, this one is that one plus 7, and we go all the way up to the end, and it even rolls around to the next year. So that is a good way to do it. So that was putting in equals B1 plus 7, so it can do date calculations in Excel. Have a think about that one for a moment. We see down here now we have 7.5 and 0.25. These numbers are a little bit harder to read. I'm actually going to highlight these. So once again, using that white cross, drag across to here. And I'm going to do, I think a couple of different ways to do this. We can go data and properties. I don't know. I always do this one. Right mouse click and format cells. I'm pretty sure there's another way to do it up there, but I've forgotten how to do it. I do it this way most of the time. So right click anywhere inside of here, inside of my selection, and we're going to go to format cells, and we're going to do a percentage. 2 decimal places is fine. I'm going to click OK, and we've got some nice looking numbers here. Now this one is 68.75. It is not including the zeros. If we actually change this to average without the word if, have a look what happens. Okay, so at the moment it was 68%, whatever it was, so without the zeros. Ooh, actually didn't like that at all. Average, because it doesn't like the rest of the formula here. Let's just do average, and then like that is 15% because it's adding in the zeros. Have a think about that just for a second. That actually looks a bit better, except for that. So let's put that back the way it was. Control Z twice will get me back. And then as these fill up, we'll get an accurate average, excluding the days that haven't happened yet. So we're forecasting these guys won't be back, but that's not going to affect our tally until we have a number in here that isn't 0. So if, let's just say everyone here was present. So I'm going to do that and actually do copy and paste, paste, just to quickly fill this one in. You see, if you're watching, the average was slowly rolling up there. Today, everyone was there. Even though 2 people have withdrawn, the attendance is 100% because active students is 8 and there were 8 people present. So yeah, that's how I like to make my Excel things, where they're kind of intelligent in that way and trying to kind of future-proof too. So if we had someone else join, the original with my names here. You see everything just shifted down the bottom there. So Control Z, show you that again, Control Y. Yeah, all the numbers just changed. First of all, we need some numbers in here. N/A, N/A, and perhaps they started in this week, present. And yeah, all the numbers are adding up down the bottom here. Now what we haven't seen going on is what's going on down the right here. Scroll over to the right. Well, we have 2 and 3 for this one, because they were here for 2 days, but we don't have anything down here. Well, we can just highlight both of these and drag these down to 14, which is there. There we go. This person attended 0 classes out of 9 classes, so this guy is going to have an interesting percentage. I think there's a better way to do this section. You might like to have a play with that. We want to fill this formula down. If you divide by 0, that's fine. That means there's no information there. Like I said, if you find a better way to do that, let me know. And I'm going to highlight these, right click and format cells. Once again, we want percentages here. Move here, please. And OK. So some of these aren't, well, I guess it is technically true. They've currently attended 100%. I think I was working on another one that had the count of total number of classes that there will be. But that's a slightly more complicated formula, and I can't quite get my head around a good way to do that. Because it's kind of it's attendance based on the percentage of You don't need to know in day one, if this person's been there, that they've only completed 1/8 of the entire number of classes. So I guess that works out fine. So far they've attended 66%. Now if you go through the documents, I'm not going to do it in this video, but in the documents, if you go through, that's all how to set up the rules for the conditional formatting. Each one of the options. So yep, that's going through that still. Autofill we have now talked about, dragging it across. Not always useful. So if you don't do the date, the +7, as it shows you here, you'll just get +1 for each day automatically. It says what's the next day. But for our example, we wanted the +7, so that's what this part here is about. And then this next part just goes through and actually explains each of those formulas in a bit more detail. And I think some of these I need to adjust. Like I think I've now changed that one because I think that formula is now just that because it wasn't working. So I'll need to update this section to include one of the other if statements. Count if is there, obviously how we did the count if something's present. So all the rest of these is just a breaking down of the main functions that we've used in today's class. Some additional conditions that you could set up. We could set up ones for if is it today. You can do this for the date, so you can actually have today, if it is today's date, that it will highlight. I'm going to let you guys go through and try and use that one yourself. And there's the usage of the roster I kind of demonstrated in video.